In the golden age of American performance, not all V8s made it to legendary status, but the rarest ones tell the most fascinating stories. From secret NASCAR prototypes and forgotten fuel-injected Hemis to supercharged oddities and race-bred monsters, these 30 engines represent the most elusive, exotic, and extraordinary V8s ever built in the US. Whether limited by production, banned by regulations, or simply ahead of their time, each one left an unforgettable mark on automotive history. Number 30, the 2015 to 2020 Ford Voodoo 5.2-liter V8. In a world dominated by cross-plane crankshafts and superchargers, Ford dared to go against the grain. The Voodoo 5.2-liter V8 wasn't just another modular motor. It was a declaration of intent. Introduced exclusively in the 2015 to 2020 Shelby GT350 and GT350R Mustangs, this engine revived the high-revving spirit of race cars and paired it with daily drivable reliability. What set it apart? Its exotic flat-plane crankshaft, a rarity in American V8 design, enabled it to rev beyond 8,250 RPM and produce a spine-tingling exhaust note more often associated with Ferraris than Fords. The Voodoo generated 526 horsepower and 429 foot-pounds of torque without forced induction, relying solely on natural aspiration and a highly efficient intake manifold. It used lightweight components like forged aluminum pistons, plasma-sprayed cylinder liners, and hollow intake valves to keep rotational mass low. This engine wasn't built for comfort, it was built for feel, feedback, and ferocity. The GT350R even deleted sound insulation and the rear seats to let the engine's voice shine through. Only around 11,000 units of this engine were ever made over a 5-year span, exclusive to the GT350 line. That might sound like a decent number, but in the world of mass-produced American performance V8s, it's a drop in the bucket. And with the GT350 now discontinued and Ford shifting towards supercharged and hybrid power plants, the Voodoo's days are officially over. More than just rare, the Voodoo is already a legend in its own time, a technological marvel that broke with tradition and gave American muscle car fans a taste of European finesse. It may be the most produced engine on this list, but its uniqueness ensures it will be one of the most collectible V8s in Ford's performance legacy. Number 29, the 1966 to 1971 Chrysler Street Hemi. When Chrysler unleashed the 426 Hemi on NASCAR tracks in 1964, it forever altered the landscape of American performance. But the real stroke of genius came 2 years later, in 1966, when Chrysler adapted this race-bred monster for street use. Nicknamed the Elephant Engine for its size and weight, the Street Hemi became the crown jewel of Mopar performance from 1966 through 1971. Though it was slightly tame from its racing sibling, it still packed a monstrous 425 horsepower and 490 foot-pounds of torque straight from the factory, numbers that even today feel intimidating. Unlike typical big blocks of the time, the Street Hemi featured hemispherical combustion chambers, oversized valves, and dual 4-barrel Carter AFB carburetors. Its cross-bolted main caps and forged internals made it nearly bulletproof, and it demanded respect not only from street racers, but also from the insurance companies that dreaded its existence. It was available in everything from Dodge Chargers to Challengers to Plymouth Roadrunners, GTXs, and Superbirds. Yet, despite its legendary status and wide availability across models, the Street Hemi was never mass-produced in large quantities. High costs, complex maintenance, and insurance supercharges kept demand low. Over its 6-year run, only around 10,000 Street Hemis were ever installed in production cars. That scarcity, combined with the engine's unmatched street credibility and drag strip dominance, makes every Street Hemi car a blue-chip collectible today. The 426 Street Hemi was more than just an engine. It was a statement, a loud, thundering, tire-shredding symbol of American engineering at its boldest. Though more common than some other engines on this list, its combination of low production, pure performance, and legendary mystique makes it one of the most sought-after V8s in muscle car history. Number 28, the 2023 Chevrolet Z8 Z06 LT6. When Chevrolet revealed the LT6 V8 for the 2023 Corvette Z06, the automotive world took notice. This wasn't just a new engine, it was a seismic shift in American performance philosophy. Ditching the pushrod architecture that defined generations of small blocks, the LT6 adopted a 5.5-liter dual overhead cam flat plane crankshaft layout, a configuration more often found in exotic European supercars than in Detroit's performance stalwarts. The result? A screaming 670 horsepower naturally aspirated V8 that revs to 8,600 RPM, making it the most powerful naturally aspirated production V8 in automotive history. Built with titanium connecting rods, a forged steel crankshaft, CNC machined aluminum heads, and an active dry sump oiling system, the LT6 is as much a race engine as it is a production power plant. Its development borrowed heavily from Chevrolet's C8.R endurance racing program, which explains its relentless focus on high revving durability and instantaneous throttle response. Every LT6 is hand-assembled at GM's Performance Build Center, a nod to its bespoke nature. While Chevrolet plans to produce thousands of Z06s, early production has been hampered by supply chain issues, and each unit is delivered with exclusivity baked in. That makes the LT6 not just powerful, but legitimately rare, especially compared to mass-produced Corvette engines of the past. More than a performance milestone, the LT6 is a radical departure from Corvette tradition. It's a bold move away from low-end torque toward high-revving finesse, and a mechanical statement that GM can build engines that rival Ferrari and Porsche in sophistication and sound. In time, as the automotive world inches toward electrification, this engine will stand tall as a last-of-its-kind masterpiece, making it one of the rarest and most important V8s America has ever produced. Number 27, the 1962 Oldsmobile Jetfire Turbo Rocket V8. Decades before turbocharging became a staple of performance engineering, Oldsmobile shocked the industry by launching the world's first production turbocharged V8 engine, the Jetfire Turbo Rocket. Introduced in 1962 and based on the lightweight, all-aluminum 215 cubic inch V8 used in the F85, this engineering marvel featured a single Garrett turbocharger paired with a special fluid injection system. The result was 215 horsepower, an impressive 1 horsepower per cubic inch, from a compact power plant weighing just 300 pounds. What made the Jetfire truly revolutionary wasn't just the turbocharger, it was the clever turbo rocket fluid system. To avoid detonation and maintain performance, Oldsmobile engineers injected a mixture of distilled water, methanol, and corrosion inhibitor into the intake during boost conditions. It was an ingenious but delicate solution, and unfortunately, most drivers weren't prepared to maintain it properly. If the fluid reservoir ran dry, performance plummeted, and engine knock became a real risk. Despite its innovation and respectable performance, the Jetfire suffered from a reputation for being finicky and unreliable. Many customers complained, and dealers often deactivated or removed the turbo system altogether. By the end of 1963, Oldsmobile had discontinued the Jetfire V8 entirely, having produced approximately 9,607 units, a number that dwindled further as surviving engines were scrapped or swapped. Today, the Jetfire Turbo Rocket V8 stands as a brilliant, flawed, and fascinating chapter in American engineering history. It foreshadowed a future where forced induction would reign, but it did it decades too soon. As one of the rarest early turbocharged engines ever built, especially from a major US automaker, it remains an incredibly collectible piece of technology and a testament to Oldsmobile's once boundless ambition. Number 26, the 1969 to 1970 Ford Boss 302 V8. Born out of Ford's desire to dominate the SCCA Trans Am road racing series, the Boss 302 V8 wasn't just another small block. It was a purpose-built weapon with a competitive soul. Debuting in 1969 and continuing for only one more model year, this 302 cubic inch V8 was a hybrid creation, marrying the thin-wall cast 302 Windsor block with the larger Cleveland-style cylinder heads. The result was an engine capable of high RPM power, quick throttle response, and enough durability to withstand the punishment of competition. Rated at a conservative 290 horsepower, the Boss 302's real potential was far greater. In reality, these engines could easily produce over 350 horsepower with minor modifications. The large port cannon valve Cleveland heads delivered superior airflow, while a high-lift solid-lift camshaft, 10.5-to-1 compression, and a performance intake made it eager to rev past 6,000 RPM. Unlike many muscle car mills that specialized in straight-line fury, the Boss 302 was bred for balance, handling, braking, and corner exit acceleration. Approximately 8,641 Boss 302 engines were built, 1,628 for the 1969 model year and 7,013 for 1970, making it relatively rare among Ford's performance catalog. It powered only the Boss 302 Mustang and a very small number of Mercury Cougars built for racing homologation, further limiting its reach. Though outnumbered by larger, more brutish engines of the era, the Boss 302 carved out a legacy defined by finesse and race-winning pedigree. It wasn't about raw displacement. It was about engineering synergy. In today's world of retro-inspired performance, the original Boss 302 V8 stands out not just for its rarity, but for what it represented. A high-revving, track-honed underdog that dared to challenge the muscle car norms. Number 25, the Chevrolet Camaro Corvette ZL1. In the early 1990s, Chevrolet stunned the world with a Corvette that didn't push the performance envelope. It tore it wide open. At the heart of the legendary ZR1 was the LT5, a 5.7-liter dual overhead cam V8 unlike any other ever built by General Motors. Developed in collaboration with Lotus Engineering and hand-assembled by Mercury Marine in Stillwater, Oklahoma, the LT5 was designed to elevate the C4 Corvette into genuine supercar territory. While it shared its displacement with the traditional pushrod L98 small block, the LT5 was a radically different beast. With 32 valves, aluminum heads, and an all-aluminum block, it revved freely to a 7,200 RPM redline, well beyond the reach of any other American V8 at the time. Early versions produced 375 horsepower, while later models, 1993 to 1995, were bumped to 405 horsepower, thanks to improved breathing and engine management systems. Its refinement and power delivery stunned automotive journalists who lauded the LT5 for its European-like smoothness and explosive top-end performance. The engine was mated to a ZF 6-speed manual and could rocket the ZR1 to 60 miles per hour in under 5 seconds, a benchmark achievement in its era. But exotic tech came at a cost. The ZR1 was expensive, and the LT5 was never used in any other GM product. In total, only 6,939 LT5 engines were produced over the 6-year run, making it one of the rarest and most technically advanced V8s to ever wear a Chevrolet badge. Today, the LT5 is celebrated as a high watermark in Corvette history, a daring moment when GM abandoned convention and delivered a power plant that could genuinely compete with Ferrari and Porsche. For collectors and engineers alike, the LT5 remains a mechanical masterpiece and a true rarity. Number 24, the 2005 to 2006 Ford GT 5.4-liter supercharged V8. To celebrate its centennial and pay homage to its Le Mans winning heritage, Ford unveiled the 2005 to 2006 Ford GT, a modern supercar inspired by the iconic GT40. But beneath its retro-futuristic bodywork lived an engine that was anything but old school, a 5.4-liter supercharged V8 that combined brute force with advanced engineering to create one of the most powerful and exclusive American V8s of the era. Derived loosely from the cast iron block used in the F-150 SVT Lightning, the GT's engine underwent a transformation. It featured a unique aluminum block, forged internals, dry sump lubrication, and high-flow cylinder heads. The Eaton 2300 Roots-type supercharger provided 12 psi of boost, helping the engine produce a staggering 550 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds of torque, performance numbers that outgunned even the Ferraris and Lamborghinis of its time. This engine wasn't just powerful, it was built to endure. The dry sump system ensured consistent oil pressure during aggressive cornering, while the air-to-water intercooler maintained intake temps under control, Paired with a Ricardo 6-speed manual transaxle, the GT's power plant allowed it to sprint to 60 miles per hour in just 3.3 seconds and top out above 200 miles per hour. Yet, unlike many modern supercars, the GT remains raw and analog, with no traction control or driver's aids to filter the experience. Ford produced just 4,038 GTs over 2 years, and everyone carried this hand-assembled 5.4-liter V8. Never used in any other production vehicle, it stands as a unique one-off power plant in Ford's performance history. Today, the 2005 to 2006 Ford GT and its engine are coveted as symbols of American engineering done right. Rare, powerful, and perfectly tuned for the golden age of analog supercars. Number 22, the 2018 Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 6.2-liter V8. In 2018, Dodge unleashed a muscle car so extreme it required a waiver to purchase. At the heart of the limited-run Challenger SRT Demon was a ferocious 6.2-liter supercharged V8 that redefined what a street-legal production engine could be. Based on the already potent Hellcat platform, the Demon's engine featured over 25 significant component upgrades, including a larger 2.7-liter supercharger, reinforced pistons and rods, a high-strength crankshaft, and a revised valve train, all to support the kind of abuse most engines would never survive. On pump gas, the Demon was rated at a mind-blowing 808 horsepower and 717 pounds of torque. With race fuel and the optional powertrain control module installed, output surged to 840 horsepower, making it the most powerful production V8 ever fitted to a road-going car at the time. The Demon's engine could rocket the car from 0 to 60 in just 2.3 seconds and complete the quarter mile in 9.65 seconds, earning it a ban from NHRA competition without a roll cage. Yet performance was only half the story. The Demon's V8 was built with precision, featuring a high-speed valve train, upgraded valve seats, and a charge cooling system that sprayed chilled fuel onto the supercharger for temperature management. Dodge even included a trans brake, a drag racing feature never before seen in a production car, to maximize off-the-line launches. Only 3,300 Demons were produced, 3,000 for the US market and 300 for Canada. Each was built for one model year only, and every single one housed this purpose-built engine. That makes the Demon's V8 not only a mechanical titan, but a rarity in the truest sense. More than just horsepower, the Demon's engine symbolized peak internal combustion excess, a final thunderclap before the industry's inevitable turn toward electrification, which we all hate. Number 21, the 1932 Pontiac Oakland V8. In the early 1930s, General Motors was a sprawling empire of automotive divisions, each with its own engines, identities, and market goals. One of the more intriguing footnotes in this era was the short-lived 251 cubic inch V8 that appeared in the final year of Oakland and the inaugural year of its successor, Pontiac, in 1932. This engine was born from GM's attempt to reorganize its brand hierarchy while preserving a sense of engineering prestige, and the result was a power plant that now stands as one of the rarest V8s of the pre-war American auto industry. Originally developed for Oakland, a division on the verge of closure, the V8 was inherited by Pontiac when Oakland was phased out. The engine featured side valve or flathead architecture and produced roughly 85 horsepower, a healthy output for the time. It was smooth and relatively quiet, ideal for the mid-level luxury image Pontiac was aiming to cultivate. However, 1932 was a devastating year for the American economy. The Great Depression had crushed car sales, and consumers were gravitating towards simpler, more fuel-efficient straight sixes. Though Pontiac offered the V8 alongside a straight 8, buyers overwhelmingly chose the latter for its smoother operation and lower cost. As a result, very few of the 251 cubic inch displacement V8s were ever built. Estimates ranged from a few thousand to mere hundreds. The following year, Pontiac abandoned the V8 altogether, opting to focus solely on straight 8 and 6-cylinder engines until the muscle car era of the 1950s. That makes the 1932 V8 a true orphaned engine, rare in production, short-lived in purpose, and historically fascinating as a bridge between two GM identities. Today, the 1932 Pontiac Oakland V8 is all but extinct, a ghost from the Depression era and a reminder of how even ambitious engineering can be outmatched by economic reality. Number 20, the 1970 Dodge Plymouth 340 6-pack V8. In the golden era of American muscle, big blocks got the spotlight, but the small block 340 6-pack V8 of 1970 proved that displacement wasn't the only path to power. Offered exclusively in two homologation specials, the Dodge Challenger TA and the Plymouth AAR CUDA, the 340 6-pack was a one-year-only engine designed to comply with the Sports Car Club of America's Trans Am racing rules. And though it was limited in production, its engineering, power-to-weight balance, and rarity make it one of the most respected Mopar engines of its time. The base 340 V8 was already a stout performer, but the 6-pack version took it to another level. It featured triple 2-barrel Holley carburetors, hence the name 6-pack, a dual-plane intake manifold, high-flow heads with larger valves, a hot camshaft, and forged internals. Officially rated at 290 horsepower, real-world output hovered well above that figure, closer to 325 or 340 horsepower in factory trim. This high-revving small block could pull strong to 6,000 RPM, offering a thrilling top end that surprised many big block fans. Its placement in the lightweight E-body chassis gave both the Challenger TA and AAR CUDA razor-sharp reflexes on the track and the street. The unique engine was also paired with side exit exhausts, a lightweight fiberglass hood with a functional hood scoop, and a race-ready suspension setup, making these cars distinct in both form and function. Production numbers were low, approximately 2,399 AAR CUDAs and 2,539 Challenger TAs were built, totaling just under 5,000 units equipped with this engine. The 340 6-pack was never offered in any other production model, and it disappeared after 1970. As a one-shot, high-performance small block built for racing, the 340 6-pack remains one of Mopar's rarest and most intriguing V8s, a brief, brilliant detour from the era's big block obsession. Number 19, the 1970 AMC 390 V8, the Rebel Machine. While the big three were busy waging horsepower wars with their muscle car flagships, Little American Motors Corporation took a different route, building a muscle car that was equal parts performance and protest. The result was the 1970 AMC Rebel Machine, a one-year-only brute powered by one of the rarest V8s AMC ever produced, the high-output 390 cubic inch Machine V8. This engine wasn't AMC's standard 390. For the Rebel Machine, engineers gave it a unique camshaft, bigger valves, high-flow heads, and a special dual exhaust system, raising output to a muscular 340 horsepower and 430 foot-pounds of torque. Topped with a 690 CFM Motorcraft carburetor and a functional Ram Air scoop mounted on a massive patriotic hood, this engine gave the Rebel Machine the performance chops to back up its wild red, white, and blue livery. The 390 V8 wasn't just fast, it was quick enough to embarrass much more expensive competition. With a 0 to 60 time of around 6.4 seconds and a quarter mile in the mid-14s, the Rebel Machine could hold its own against big names like the Chevelle SS396 and GTO Judge. Yet, despite its capability, the car and its unique engine remained a niche product. Total production was just 2,326 units, all in 1970, and the high-output 390 was never used in any other AMC vehicle. Today, the Rebel Machine is a cult classic, and the 390 V8 that powers it is a major reason why. Its rarity isn't just about numbers, it's about context. AMC didn't have the deep pockets or racing budgets of its rivals, but it still managed to build an engine that delivered true muscle car credentials. As AMC's loudest, boldest performance statement, the Rebel Machine 390 remains one of the rarest and most underrated V8s of the golden era. Number 18, the 1969 to 1970 Ford Boss 429 V8. When NASCAR rules demanded that engines be available in production vehicles to qualify for competition, Ford answered with one of the most radical engines it ever created, the Boss 429. Built not for the street, but the homologated racing powerhouse, the Boss 429 V8, nicknamed the Boss 9, was a massive 429 cubic inch beast designed specifically for high RPM durability and airflow dominance. Unlike Ford's other 429 engines, the Boss variant featured Hemi-style aluminum cylinder heads with crescent-shaped combustion chambers, oversized valves, and a staggered valve layout. This allowed for incredible breathing at high RPM, essential for the speedway racing of the day. The block was equally overbuilt, with 4-bolt mains, a forged steel crank, and a unique oiling system. Though factory rated at just 375 horsepower, most experts believe actual output was well north of 500 horsepower in stock form, making it one of the most underrated performance engines of its time. The Boss 429 was never intended to live under the hood of the Mustang. It barely fit. Ford subcontracted assembly to Carcraft, which heavily modified the front ends of 1,359 Mustangs, 859 in 1969, and 500 in 1970, just to wedge the engine between these shock towers. The cars became instant legends, though few owners ever pushed them to their true potential. Despite its limited run and high cost, the Boss 429 remains one of the most sought-after muscle car power plants. It was never used in any other production vehicle, and even race teams were restricted in access to crate versions. Built for NASCAR but unleashed on the streets, the Boss 429 was Ford's ultimate flex of engineering muscle. Today, its rarity and purpose-built pedigree make it a crown jewel among American V8s. Number 17, the 1973 to 1974 Pontiac Superduty 455 V8. As the muscle car era entered its twilight in the early 1970s, battered by emissions regulations, rising insurance rates, and looming fuel crises, Pontiac defiantly unveiled one of the most brutal and overbuilt engines ever to come out of Detroit, the Superduty 455. Offered only in the 1973 to 1974 Firebird Formula and Trans Am, this engine was a last stand for uncompromised American performance. Unlike the standard 455s of the era, the Superduty 455 was essentially a race engine made street legal. It featured reinforced main bearing webs, 4-bolt mains, forged rods and pistons, a high-lift camshaft, and specially cast heads with massive ports. The block was so robust it could support sustained high RPM use, something most big blocks at the time were never engineered for. Despite being rated at 290 to 310 net horsepower to comply with new SAE standards, real output was closer to 370 to 390 horsepower, with torque well over 500 foot-pounds. The Superduty was also engineered to meet new emission standards without sacrificing strength, a feat that required extensive development. Pontiac even intended to offer it in the GTO and Grand Am, but due to rising pressures from regulators and corporate decision-makers, the SE program was scaled back dramatically. Ultimately, only about 1,296 Superduty 455 engines were installed, 252 in 1973 and 943 in 1974. Today, the Superduty 455 is revered not just for its rarity, but for its defiance. It was the last uncompromised, factory-built muscle engine of the pre-catalytic converter era. An unapologetic shot of adrenaline before the lights dimmed on Detroit performance. For collectors and Pontiac loyalists, the SD455 is more than rare. It's sacred. Number 16, the 2019 Cadillac Blackwing 4.2-liter twin-turbo V8. When Cadillac set out to redefine itself as a global luxury performance contender, it didn't just settle for styling or badge engineering. It built a masterpiece of modern engineering from the ground up. At the heart of its transformation was the hand-built 4.2-liter twin-turbocharged V8 known as the Blackwing. Exclusive to the short-lived Cadillac CT6V, formerly called the CT6V Sport, the Blackwing engine represented one of the most sophisticated and rarest V8s ever developed by General Motors. It delivered a blistering 550 horsepower and 627 foot-pounds of torque in the CT6V and a detuned 500 horsepower version in the CT6 Platinum. With direct fuel injection, variable valve timing, and cylinder deactivation, The Blackwing wasn't just powerful, it was refined, efficient, and cutting edge. Every engine was hand-assembled at GM's Performance Build Center in Bowling Green, Kentucky, with a plaque bearing the builder's signature. It was mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission and paired with GM's advanced all-wheel drive system, giving the CT6V surprising agility for a full-size sedan. But despite critical acclaim and a promising debut, the Blackwing program fell victim to shifting corporate priorities. As GM pivoted away from sedans and focused on electric vehicles, the CT6V and its crown jewel engine was discontinued. Fewer than 875 Blackwing V8s were ever produced, making it an instant rarity. Though its life was short, the Blackwing V8 is already a legend, an engineering tour de force that showed Cadillac could rival Germany's best. Its exclusivity and innovation ensure that it will be remembered as one of America's most refined and rare high-performance V8s. Number 15, the 1964 Ford 427 single overhead cam Cammer V8. In the high-stakes world of 1960s motorsports, Ford wasn't just playing to win. It was building engines that could rewrite the rulebook. The most radical of these was the 1964 Ford 427 single overhead cam V8, better known as the Cammer. Developed as an all-out assault on Chrysler's 426 Hemi dominance in NASCAR, the Cammer was unlike anything else coming out of Detroit. It was a single overhead cam, hemispherical-headed monster capable of revving higher and harder than any wedge-head big block of its era. The engine started with Ford's bulletproof 427 FE side oiler block, which was already a proven performer. But Ford engineers added cast aluminum heads with hemispherical combustion chambers and massive valves, actuated by a single overhead camshaft on each head. A long timing chain measuring over 6 feet drove the cams, giving the engine its iconic timing cover bulge. In factory form, the 427 single overhead cam produced 616 horsepower at 7,000 RPM and well over 475 foot-pounds of torque. With tuning, it could easily exceed 700 horsepower. NASCAR, however, never gave the Cammer a fair fight. Declaring it a non-stock engine, the governing body banned it from competition before it could hit the super speedways. Ford pivoted, selling the Cammer as a crate engine for drag racing and high-performance builds. It found a second life on the quarter mile, where it dominated Top Fuel and funny car classes for years. Only an estimated 500 to 600 Cammers were ever built, and none were installed in a factory production car. Instead, they went into rails, drag cars, and a few lucky hands who could afford the astronomical cost. The 427 single overhead cam Cammer remains a mythical engine, rare, terrifying, and deeply revered. It represents the wildest ambitions of a manufacturer unleashed, and it still stands as one of the most exotic and potent V8s ever built in America. Number 14, the 1962 Chrysler 413 Max Wedge V8. Before Hemis ruled the Mopar Kingdom, there was another engine that set the drag strips on fire, the 413 Max Wedge. Introduced in 1962 and offered through 1964, the Max Wedge was a factory-engineered race motor built to dominate NHRA superstock classes and establish Chrysler as a force to be reckoned with in the world of straight-line performance. It was not just a hopped-up street engine, it was an uncompromising, purpose-built weapon for the quarter mile. The Max Wedge started life as a 413 cubic inch RB big block, but Chrysler engineers gave it a radical makeover. It featured high compression forged pistons, a wild solid lifter camshaft, cast iron heads with huge ports, and a unique cross ramp intake manifold that mounted dual 4-barrel carburetors far apart from each other. These intakes were engineered to boost torque by increasing air velocity at lower RPMs, though the system truly came alive around 4,000 RPM. Horsepower varied depending on compression ratio and model year, ranging from 410 to 420 horsepower, astounding for its time. Cars equipped with the Max Wedge engine were typically stripped-down Dodge and Plymouth B-body sedans like the Dart and Savoy. They had minimal creature comforts, lightweight body panels, and heavy-duty drivetrains. The 413 was a race-ready engine straight from the showroom. No tuning required. Only a few hundred were produced across its short run, and they were sold to serious racers who knew how to handle its brutal nature. The 413 Max Wedge was a critical stepping stone in Chrysler's evolution as a performance brand. It paved the way for the 426 race Hemi and cemented Mopar's reputation for building drag strip dominators. Today, surviving Max Wedge cars are among the rarest and most revered pieces of early 1960s American racing history. Number 13, the 1936-37 Cord 810-812 supercharged 289 cubic inch displacement Lycoming V8. Long before supercharging became a staple of modern performance, the Cord 810-812 blazed an audacious path through the American automotive landscape. These striking vehicles, produced for just 2 years, were technological marvels of their time. And at the center of their innovation was the 289 cubic inch Lycoming-built V8, which, with the optional centrifugal supercharger, became one of the earliest examples of a factory supercharged American engine. The base Lycoming V8 in the Cord produced a respectable 125 horsepower, but when supercharged in the 812 model, output rose to approximately 170 horsepower, an enormous figure in the 1930s. The engine featured aluminum heads, a compact design, and a gear-driven centrifugal blower that tucked neatly into the streamlined bodywork. It was mated to a semi-automatic pre-selector transmission and powered the car's revolutionary front-wheel drive layout, freeing up space in the cabin and contributing to the Cord's incredibly low-slung profile. Cord didn't just innovate under the hood. The 810-812 featured concealed headlights, hidden door hinges, a unibody frame, and a streamlined coffin nose design that looked like it belonged in a future era. These elements combined with the supercharged V8 to produce one of the most avant-garde cars of the pre-war era. Yet, despite its brilliance, the Cord brand faced insurmountable financial hurdles. Build quality issues, unreliable electronics, and a high price tag limited its commercial success. Only around 3,000 Cords were produced in total, and just a few hundred were equipped with the supercharged version of the Lycoming V8. Today, the supercharged Cord 812 stands as a beacon of pre-war American engineering ambition. Its engine, rare, advanced, and intertwined with one of the most stunning designs of the era, is a jewel in the crown of early V8 development and one of the rarest performance power plants ever built. Number 12, the 1956 Packard Caribbean. By 1956, Packard, a once proud name in American luxury, was nearing the end of its road. But before fading into history, the marquee delivered a last gasp of engineering brilliance, the 374 cubic inch V8 found in the final year Packard Caribbean. This wasn't just any luxury engine. It was a refined yet potent V8 that remained one of the rarest and most elegant power plants of the 1950s. The 374 cubic inch displacement V8 was the largest displacement engine Packard ever produced, and in dual quad form, standard in the Caribbean, it delivered a robust 310 horsepower. This output placed the Caribbean at the top of the performance ladder for luxury cars of the time, rivaling Cadillac and Lincoln while blending power with Packard's signature smoothness. Featuring an iron block and heads, hydraulic lifters, and Carter 4-barrel carburetor, 2 of them, the engine was tuned for effortless torque and refined operation rather than raw aggression. What truly set the Caribbean apart, however, was the platform in which the engine resided. The car featured self-leveling torsion bar suspension, push-button transmission controls, and opulent styling with tritone paint schemes and fully loaded interiors. It was as much a statement of luxury innovation as it was mechanical capability. Yet Packard was in crisis. Poor sales, a failed merger with Studebaker, and competition from the Big Three left little room for survival. Only 276 Caribbean models were built in 1956, divided between convertibles and hardtops, making them exceedingly rare. Even fewer survive today with their original dual-quad 374 V8 intact. This final Packard engine represents more than just horsepower. It was the swan song of a legendary automaker, one last glorious expression of independent American engineering in an era increasingly dominated by corporate giants. Number 11, the 1967 to 1969 Chevrolet L88 427 V8. Among all the big blocks to ever leave Chevrolet's factory, none are as feared, revered, and rare as the L88 427 V8. Offered only between 1967 and 1969 and never advertised to the public, this was a no-compromise race-bred engine built for serious competition, not casual cruising. It was Chevrolet's most powerful and extreme production engine of the muscle car era, and it came with warnings. No radio, no air conditioning, no creature comforts. Just raw horsepower. On paper, the L88 was rated at 430 horsepower. In reality, it produced well over 500 horsepower. Some estimates placed output near 560 when properly tuned. The engine featured a forged steel crankshaft, 4 bolt mains, high compression aluminum heads, a solid lifter camshaft, an 850 CFM Holley 4-barrel carburetor, and a 12.5-to-1 compression ratio. It demanded 103 octane fuel and delivered astonishing power at high RPMs. The L88 wasn't just a brute, it was a sophisticated, hand-built monster intended for those who knew how to handle it. It was most commonly installed in Corvettes, although a few Camaros and Chevelles were equipped through the Capo program. Because Chevrolet discouraged regular customers from ordering L88 equipped cars, emphasizing its race-only nature, only 20 were built in 1967, 80 in 1968, and 116 in 1969, totaling just 216 units across 3 years. Today, original L88 cars fetch astronomical prices at auction, not only for their rarity, but for the mystique surrounding the engine. It was never about comfort or even daily drivability. It was about domination on the track. The L88 wasn't just a big block. It was a beast that defined Chevrolet's high-performance zenith. Built to win, nearly forgotten, and now fiercely collected. The L88 427 is a purebred American icon. Number 10, the 1957 Ford FCode Supercharged 312. In 1957, as the horsepower wars intensified and automakers pushed the limits of performance, Ford introduced one of the most underrated yet significant performance engines of the decade, the FCode Supercharged 312 V8. Offered as a limited production option for the Thunderbird and select full-size Ford models, this engine was Ford's bold entry into the world of forced induction, a precursor to the muscle car era that would erupt a decade later. At its core, the FCode engine was based on Ford's Y-block architecture, displacing 312 cubic inches. But the game changer was the Paxton McCullough VR57 centrifugal supercharger mounted on top of the engine. With 6 psi of boost and a specially calibrated Holley carburetor, the FCode produced a factory-rated 300 horsepower and 340 foot-pounds of torque. For comparison, this placed it on par with many larger displacement engines of the era, but with the high-revving personality and lighter weight of a small block. Ford's intent was to dominate NHRA and NASCAR competition, and the FCode made its mark. Yet its complexity and cost, nearly $340 extra in $1957, meant few buyers opted for the package. Just 211 Thunderbirds were officially produced with the FCode option, along with a small, undocumented number of full-size sedans and wagons, making this one of the rarest production V8s Ford ever built. Today, surviving FCode cars are among the most collectible Thunderbirds in existence. The combination of factory supercharging, limited numbers, and historical significance has elevated the 312 FCode V8 into the realm of a legend. Rare, refined, and surprisingly powerful, the FCode Supercharged 312 wasn't just a novelty. It was a technological leap that foreshadowed the rise of modern boosted performance. Number 9, the 1962 Pontiac 421 Superduty V8. In the early 1960s, while other automakers were still figuring out how to transition from boulevard cruisers to serious performance machines, Pontiac was already taking trophies at the drag strip. Leading that charge was the 421 Superduty V8, a purpose-built factory racing engine that wasn't just powerful for its time, but revolutionary in how it redefined what a muscle car engine could be. Originally derived from the standard 421 cubic inch displacement block, the Superduty version was a different beast altogether. It featured forged internals, high-flow cylinder heads, a high-lift camshaft, and dual Carter 4-barrel carburetors mounted on a lightweight aluminum intake. Each versions were conservatively rated at 405 horsepower, but real-world performance suggested much more. The block also had bracing in critical areas and extra webbing for strength, traits uncommon in passenger car engines of the era. In 1962 alone, Pontiac produced only about 179 Super Duty cars with this engine. These were typically full-size Catalinas and Grand Prix models, built for NHRA Superstock and NASCAR competition. Pontiac followed up with a few more units in early 1963, but mounting pressure from GM's corporate ban on racing led to the abrupt cancellation of the program later that year. Though it was short-lived, the 421 Super Duty set the tone for what would become the muscle car movement. It proved that factory-built race cars were not only feasible, but marketable. The engine's sheer rarity, combined with its performance credentials and its role in launching Pontiac's reputation as a performance brand, make it one of the most collectible American V8s ever produced. More than just rare, the 421 Super Duty is a milestone, a mechanical turning point that marked the beginning of the American horsepower revolution. Number 7, the 1964 Chrysler 426 Hemi. Before the Elephant engine became a street legend in 1966, it earned its fearsome reputation on the drag strip and NASCAR ovals in 1964. This was the original 426 Hemi, Chrysler's purpose-built race Hemi, a no-nonsense, competition-only V8 that redefined American motorsport dominance. It was not designed for daily driving or creature comforts. It was built for one thing only: to win. The 1964 race Hemi featured hemispherical combustion chambers, an idea Chrysler had experimented with since the early 1950s, and applied it to a brand new architecture based on the RB Big Block. With massive intake and exhaust valves, forged internals, 12.5-to-1 compression, and dual Carter AFB carburetors sitting on a cross-ram aluminum intake manifold, the 426 race Hemi was conservatively rated at 425 horsepower and over 480 foot-pounds of torque. In race trim, however, these engines were making well over 500 horsepower, sometimes approaching 600. Chrysler debuted the engine in February 1964 at the Daytona 500. It immediately changed the game. Hemi-powered Plymouths and Dodges took 4 of the top 5 spots, stunning the competition and ushering in an era of Mopar dominance. The success triggered controversy, and by 1965, NASCAR banned the engine until a street version was offered to meet homologation requirements, leading to the later Street Hemi. Only about 50 race Hemis were installed in ultra-lightweight drag racing cars in 1964. Plymouth Belvederes and Dodge 330s that were factory-built for NHRA competition. Another limited batch went to NASCAR teams, making these early Hemis extremely rare. Today, the original race Hemi stands as one of the most important American V8s ever made. It marked the beginning of Chrysler's reign at the top of the performance heap, and its rarity makes it a holy grail among collectors and racing historians alike. Number 6, the 1969 Chevrolet ZL1 427 V8. The ZL1 427 wasn't just Chevrolet's most extreme engine of the muscle car era. It was a unicorn among high-performance V8s, a race-bred marvel built with exotic materials, legendary power, and ultra-limited availability. Conceived primarily for drag racing and Can-Am road racing, the all-aluminum ZL1 was the most expensive and advanced big block ever offered by Chevrolet, and one of the rarest production engines ever installed in a street car. Based on the legendary L88 427, the ZL1 used the same architecture, but with an all-aluminum block and heads. This reduced engine weight by over 100 pounds, significantly improving the power-to-weight ratio. Internally, it featured a forged steel crankshaft, solid lifter camshaft, forged pistons, and high-flow intake manifold. The factory rating of 430 horsepower was intentionally understated to avoid raising red flags with insurance companies and regulators. In truth, the Z01 produced upwards of 550 horsepower in stock form and over 600 with minor tuning. Though developed for competition, Chevrolet made the Z01 technically available as a factory engine via the Central Office Production Order System. In 1969, Fred Gibbs Chevrolet ordered 50 Capo Camaros with the Z01 to meet NHRA homologation rules. Ultimately, only 69 ZL1 Camaros were built, with a few additional engines sold over-the-counter to racers and Corvette customers. A few ZL1 Corvettes exist, but they are extremely rare and often hotly debated for authenticity. The Z01's astronomical price tag, more than double that of a base engine, meant few customers could justify the cost. But those who did were rewarded with one of the most formidable V8s ever dropped into a production car. Today, surviving ZL1 cars command seven-figure values, and the engine itself is a symbol of peak American muscle car engineering. Rare, raw, and virtually untouchable in both performance and legacy. Number 5, the 1958 Chrysler 392 Hemi fuel-injected V8. By the late 1950s, Chrysler was already known for its mighty firepower Hemi engines, massive, complex V8s that delivered unmatched torque and high-performance credibility. But in 1958, Chrysler took a bold and experimental step into the future with the introduction of electronic fuel injection on the venerable 392 Hemi. The result was a short-lived but fascinating power plant, the 392 Hemi fuel-injected V8, one of the rarest and most advanced engines of its day. The 392 cubic inch Hemi was already a powerhouse, typically rated at 375 to 390 horsepower with dual carburetor setups. But with the optional Bendix electrojector fuel injection system, horsepower climbed to a claimed 390 in the Chrysler 300D and up to 345 in the DeSoto Adventurer. The electrojector system was the first production electronic fuel injection offered by an American automaker, predating the technology's widespread adoption by decades. The system itself was sophisticated for the era, using sensors to monitor manifold pressure, throttle position, engine temperature, and battery voltage to regulate fuel delivery electronically. However, it was plagued by reliability issues. The primitive electronics struggled with cold starts, voltage sensitivity, and moisture, leading most customers, and even dealers, to replace the EFI setup with traditional carburetors shortly after delivery. Because of its complexity and high cost, very few vehicles were ever factory equipped with the EFI 392. Chrysler built only 35 to 40 fuel-injected cars before quietly withdrawing the option. Most surviving examples have long since had the original units removed, making complete, functioning fuel-injected 392 Hemis among the rarest of all Hemi-powered setups. Today, the 1958 EFI 392 Hemi represents a moment of technological daring, an early, imperfect glimpse at a future that wouldn't arrive for decades. Rare, ambitious, and nearly forgotten, it remains one of the most unique and collectible V8s ever offered by an American automaker. Number 4, the 1970 Pontiac Ram Air5 V8. Among Pontiac's storied history of performance engines, none are as mysterious, experimental, and exclusive as the Ram Air5. Developed in the late 1960s as a racing evolution of the successful Ram Air3 and 4 engines, the Ram Air5 was intended to propel Pontiac into Trans Am and NHRA dominance. With radical engineering and extremely low production numbers, the 1970 Ram Air5 became Pontiac's most mythical engine, one that barely escaped the prototype stage and is now considered one of the rarest American V8s ever built. Though it shared the 400 and 428 cubic inch displacements with other Pontiac blocks, the Ram Air5 was a completely different animal. Its most distinctive feature was the use of tunnel port cylinder heads, massive rectangular intake ports with pushrod tubes running through them, similar to what Ford had used on its own exotic 427 racing engines. These heads flowed astonishing volumes of air, especially at high RPM, but required high compression, an aggressive camshaft, and serious tuning to perform optimally. The Ram Air5 was never factory installed in any production car. Instead, it was offered through Pontiac's parts network as a crate engine or over-the-counter racing package. Estimates suggest that only about 25 to 50 complete crate engines were ever built, with additional sets of Ram Air5 heads and intakes sold separately. Versions of the engines were produced in 303, 400, and 428 cubic inch forms, depending on the intended racing category: Trans Am, Superstock, or drag racing. Today, locating a complete original Ram Air5 engine is incredibly difficult. Most were used hard on the track or dismantled for parts. The engine stands as a symbol of what might have been, an unfulfilled promise from a company known for pushing the limits of street and strip performance. Number 3, the 1963 Chevrolet Mystery Motor Mark II 427. Before the legendary Mark IV big block became the foundation of Chevrolet performance, there was the Mark II, an engine shrouded in secrecy and born from pure racing ambition. Nicknamed the Mystery Motor, the 1963 Chevrolet Mark II 427 was a prototype NASCAR engine that laid the groundwork for decades of big block dominance. It never saw mass production, was never offered in a street car, and was so secretive that it caused a stir just by showing up at Daytona. The Mark II was based on the 409 W Series engine architecture, but incorporated radical improvements. Displacement was increased to 427 cubic inches, and the wedge-shaped combustion chambers, designed to improve airflow and combustion efficiency, were a departure from the flat-top chambers in the 348-409 series. It also featured canted valves and redesigned heads that would directly influence the architecture of the future 396, 427, and 454 Mark IV engines. The engine made its public debut under the hood of factory-supported Chevrolet Impalas at the 1963 Daytona 500. Drivers like Junior Johnson shocked the field with their speed, prompting the press and competitors to question what engine lay beneath the hood, hence the Mystery Motor nickname. It was reported to produce around 500 horsepower, a staggering number for the time, and it immediately proved competitive under the speedways. Due to the General Motors corporate racing ban in mid-1963, the Mark II project was abruptly halted. Fewer than 50 complete engines are believed to have been built, most of them reserved for top-level race teams. Though it never reached production lines or dealership floors, the Mark II's legacy is enormous. It was the prototype that bridged Chevrolet's W Series past with its big block future, and its extreme rarity, experimental nature, and race-winning performance make it one of the most historically significant and elusive American V8s ever built. Number 2, the 1964 Studebaker Avanti R3. In the twilight years of Studebaker's existence, the company took one final bold swing at high-performance innovation with the Avanti R3, a rare factory supercharged V8 engine that pushed the limits of what a small independent automaker could achieve. Hand-built, race-capable, and virtually unknown outside of collector circles, the R3 was a masterpiece of forced induction engineering and one of the rarest V8s ever installed in an American production vehicle. The R3 engine began as Studebaker's rugged 289 cubic inch V8, which was then stroked and bored out to 304.5 cubic inches. Developed in collaboration with the Paxton Products division owned by legendary engine builder Andy Granatelli, the R3 featured a forged steel crankshaft, forged rods and pistons, high-flow cylinder heads, a revised camshaft, and a Paxton centrifugal supercharger that delivered up to 6 psi of boost. With a Carter AFB carburetor and a conservative 9.75 to 1 compression ratio, the engine produced a factory-rated 335 horsepower, extraordinary for a car of its size and era. The R3 wasn't just built for the street. It was engineered with Bonneville salt flats runs in mind. And indeed, a factory-backed Avanti equipped with the R3 set a class speed record of over 170 miles per hour in 1963, a staggering figure for the time. Despite its performance prowess, the engine saw virtually no mass production. By 1964, Studebaker was on the verge of closing its South Bend assembly plant and discontinuing U.S. operations. Only 9 Avantis were ever equipped with the R3 engine from the factory. Today, original R3-powered Avantis are among the rarest performance cars ever produced in America. Their engines, handmade and over-engineered, are prized by collectors for their technical sophistication and incredible scarcity, a high-performance swan song from a dying but determined automaker. And number 1, the 1970 Buick Stage 2 455 V8. At the peak of the muscle car era, Buick, traditionally a luxury brand, unexpectedly delivered one of the most formidable engines ever to come out of General Motors, the 455 Stage 1. But lurking even deeper in the shadows was something rarer, wilder, and built for pure competition: the 1970 Buick Stage 2 455 V8. Almost mythical in nature and never officially cataloged for production cars, the Stage 2 engine was a dealer-installed, track-focused performance package that today ranks among the rarest American V8s ever made. While the Stage 1 455 was already a beast, rated at 360 horsepower and 510 foot-pounds of torque, the Stage 2 took it further. It included a new camshaft, revised carburetor calibration, high-lift rocker arms, and most critically, specially cast Stage 2 cylinder heads with larger ports and improved airflow. These heads were over-the-counter parts designed for drag racers who wanted more power at higher RPMs. With the full Stage 2 setup and proper tuning, output soared well above 500 horsepower, making it a true threat on the strip. The Stage 2 package was never factory installed. It was a performance dealer option meant for those who knew exactly what they were asking for. As a result, only a handful of 1970 to 1971 cars, possibly as few as 3 or 4, were fully built with the complete Stage 2 package installed at the dealership. Most others received only partial upgrades or had the parts retrofitted later by racers and enthusiasts. Because of this ultra-limited availability and minimal factory documentation, genuine Stage 2 equipped Buicks are incredibly difficult to verify and even harder to find, but their legend endures. The Buick Stage 2 455 wasn't just a rare engine, it was Buick's unapologetic, fire-breathing response to the muscle car wars. And it closes the list at number 1 as the rarest production-based American V8 ever to thunder off a GM dealership floor.